UK leader cracks down on sick note culture. Britain is cracking down on the nation's sick note culture. The UK's leader, Rishi Sunak, believes too many people are claiming welfare benefits because of mental health issues. The leader said this was a drain on the economy and was creating labour shortages. The most common reason for doctors to issue sick notes is mental health. Mr. Sunak said, "We need to change the sick note culture so the default becomes what work you can do, not what you can't." Sunak wants people off benefits and back to work. He said, "We must be more honest about over-medicalising the everyday worries of life." He said half of people who became inactive recently cited depression and anxiety. Many people blame Sunak for this crisis. A charity said, "Services are at breaking point following years of underinvestment." Opposition politicians called Sunak's plans another front for their culture wars.
UK leader cracks down on sick note culture. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced plans to crack down on what he has labelled Britain's sick note culture. The leader believes there are too many people in the UK claiming welfare benefits because of mental health issues. He said welfare payments were a drain on the economy and the number of people not working was creating labour shortages. The number of sick notes issued by doctors has risen sharply since the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. The most common diagnoses being given by doctors are related to mental health and behavioural disorders. Sunak said, "We need to change the sick note culture so the default becomes what work you can do, not what you can't." Mr. Sunak has emphasized the need to get people back into employment. He said, "We need to be more ambitious about helping people back to work and more honest about the risk of over-medicalizing the everyday challenges and worries of life." He added, half of people becoming inactive over the last year cited depression and anxiety. Opponents of Sunak's plans say his government caused the current crisis. The mental health charity Minds said, "The truth is that services are at breaking point following years of underinvestment." The opposition Labour Party called Sunak's plans another front for their culture wars. It said the government was tone-deaf, shameless and irresponsible.
Milan wants to ban takeaway food after midnight. Milan wants to ban the sale of takeaway food after midnight. This is to help local people sleep. People are angry about the noise on the streets at night. Milan wants to ban takeaway food in 12 areas of the city. Some of these areas are known for their wild nightlife. The takeaway ban means people would not be able to buy pizza after 12:30 a.m. on weekdays. The ban would start in mid-May and continue until November. Milan's deputy mayor said the goal is a balance between entertainment and the peace of residents. However, many people do not like the ban. A spokesperson for stores said the food ban would not stop the noise. He said a ban on eating pizza won't solve a thing. He said people would stay outside. He said a 25-year-old would not go home at night because they cannot get a takeaway. He also said tourists want to eat ice cream.
Milan wants to ban takeaway food after midnight. The Italian city of Milan wants to introduce a law to ban the sale of takeaway food after midnight. The reason for this is to help local residents sleep. Many people have complained to the local government about the noise on the streets at night. There are often large and noisy groups of late-night revelers in downtown Milan. Local officials have decided to ban all takeaway food and drink in 12 districts of the city. Some of these areas are well known for their wild nightlife. The takeaway ban means people would not be able to buy pizza or ice cream after 12:30 a.m. on weekdays and after 1:30 a.m. at weekends and on public holidays. It would come into effect from mid-May and last until November. Milan's deputy mayor explained why the ban was important. He said, "The goal is to seek a balance between socializing and entertainment and the peace and tranquility of residents." However, there are also many people who oppose the ban. A spokesperson for an Italian retail association said the ban on post-midnight food and drink would not stop the noise. He said, "A rule banning people from drinking a bottle of water or eating an ice cream or pizza while taking a stroll won't solve a thing, as people will still stay outside." He asked, "Do you think a 25-year-old is going to go home at the stroke of midnight simply because they can't get a takeout?" He added, "What about tourists who want to eat ice cream?"
Town to erect fence to stop Mount Fuji selfies. Over-tourism is causing headaches for authorities and residents in Japan. The weaker yen has meant people are flocking to see Japan's sights and sample its world-famous cuisine. A town at the foot of Mount Fuji is taking action to combat the problem. The town is being flooded with sightseers taking selfies in front of a convenience store with Fujisan in the background. The town will make a giant fence to block the view of Japan's iconic mountain. A local official said the tourists were throwing trash in the streets and blocking traffic. The town has employed security guards to control selfie takers. The official said it was regrettable to have to erect the fence, which will be 20 meters long and 25 meters high. Other places in Japan are also battling over-tourism. Locals in Kyoto cannot get on overcrowded buses. Areas of Kyoto have been closed to tourists to stop people harassing geisha.
Town to erect fence to stop Mount Fuji selfies. Over-tourism is causing headaches for authorities and consternation for local residents worldwide. Japan is one country that is battling surging numbers of international tourists. The weaker yen has meant people are flocking to see Japan's numerous World Heritage sites and sample its world-famous cuisine. A town near Mount Fuji has devised a drastic measure to combat the problem of over-tourism. Fujikawaguchiko, which is at the foot of Fuji, has become inundated with sightseers who want selfies of themselves in front of a brightly colored convenience store, with Fujisan as the backdrop. Local authorities have decided to erect a giant mesh fence to obscure the view of Japan's iconic mountain. A local official told journalists that the increasing number of tourists was creating problems for residents. These include trash being left in the streets, traffic being blocked, and security guards being employed to marshal selfie takers. The official said of the fence, "It is regrettable that we had to take such measures." She added that it was because of some tourists who cannot respect rules. The fence will be 20 meters long and 2.5 meters high. Other places in Japan are also battling large numbers of overseas visitors. Locals in the ancient city of Kyoto cannot board increasingly overcrowded buses. Areas of Kyoto have been closed to tourists to prevent people harassing geisha in a problem dubbed as geisha paparazzi.
Men sleep better than women, study finds. Men may sleep better than women. Because of this, women need different treatments for sleep disorders. Insomnia is 1.5 times more common among women. One reason for this is our body clock. Women have about 6 minutes less time per day to rest. Another reason is motherhood. There are unequal stresses on mothers. A doctor said it's almost like their brain was half listening out for their children in the middle of the night. The stress of everyday life means more of us are finding it difficult to sleep. Around 30% of people experience sleep deprivation. a lack of sleep can lead to life-threatening illnesses. These include diabetes and heart disease. Insufficient sleep can also negatively impact our concentration and lead to poorer mental health. A neurologist said, "There is a high correlation with underlying psychiatric disorders and insomnia."
Men sleep better than women, study finds. A new study has discovered that men may sleep better than women. Researchers say that because of this, sleep disorders experienced by the sexes need to be treated differently. Insomnia is about 1.5 times more common among women than men. The researchers say that one reason for this is our circadian rhythms, our body clock. Women's circadian cycles are about 6 minutes shorter than men's. This means women physically have less time in which to rest. Another reason is motherhood, which places unequal strains and burdens on mothers. Dr. Elena Tiani said, "It's almost like their brain was half listening out for their children in the middle of the night, in case they needed something." People worldwide are finding it increasingly harder to get a good night's rest. The stress and pressures of day-to-day life mean more of us are struggling to get 40 winks. It is estimated that around 30% of the global population is experiencing sleep deprivation. This is having adverse effects on our health. A lack of sleep can lead to detrimental and often life-threatening health conditions. These include diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension. Insufficient sleep can also negatively impact our powers to concentrate and lead to a deterioration in mental health. Neurologist Dr. Eric Sklar said, "There is a high correlation with underlying psychiatric disorders and insomnia."
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is 200 years old. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was played in Vienna for its 200th anniversary. The premiere of Beethoven's masterpiece took place in Vienna on the 7th of May, 1824. Beethoven lived and worked in Vienna for most of his life. He wrote many of his famous works there. A woman who sang in the choir told the BBC, "It's the whole world to us to be able to sing this wonderful message of love. You're lifted up when you're singing." Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is one of the greatest and most widely recognized pieces of music ever written. The symphony's fourth movement is called Ode to Joy. A version of Ode to Joy is the anthem of the European Union. The ode represents peace and international understanding. The singer in the choir said Beethoven's Ninth was wonderful. She said it moves from the darkness to the light.
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is 200 years old. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony has been played in Vienna to mark the 200th anniversary of its first performance. The premiere of Beethoven's masterpiece took place at a theater in Austria's capital city on the 7th of May, 1824. Vienna is the city where the German composer lived and worked for much of his life. He composed many of his most famous works there. The anniversary performance earlier this week was conducted by the world-famous Italian conductor Riccardo Muti. A member of the choir told the BBC how happy she was to sing in the 200-year celebration. She said, "It's the whole world to us to be able to sing this wonderful message of love. You're lifted up when you're singing." The Ninth Symphony is believed to be one of the greatest pieces of music ever written. It is also one of the most played and most widely recognized classical works. The symphony's final part, the fourth movement, is called Ode to Joy. This was revolutionary 200 years ago because it used solo voices and a choir. An adapted version of Ode to Joy is the anthem of the European Union. It is loved and played by orchestras worldwide. In Japan, it is sung each December by a choir of 10,000 singers. The ode represents peace and international understanding. Heidrun Irene Mittermeier, a singer in a Viennese choir, called Beethoven's Ninth a wonderful message of love. She added that it moves from the darkness to the light.
Anti-oil protesters try to damage the Magna Carta. Climate protesters tried to damage a world-famous document, the Magna Carta. Two women in their 80s went to the British Library to attack the document. They damaged the document's case using a hammer and a chisel. Police charged them with criminal damage. Security officers stopped them from doing further damage. The Magna Carta stayed safe. The women are from the Just Stop Oil group. They accused the UK of breaking climate laws. The Magna Carta is a royal charter from 1215. It states that everyone is equal under the law. It guarantees everyone a fair trial with a jury. Historians say the document influenced the development of Western democracy and the US Constitution. The two protesters said the Magna Carta was important for our freedoms. They added that there will be no freedom, no lawfulness, no rights, if we allow climate breakdown.
Anti-oil protesters tried to damage the Magna Carta. Two climate activists have tried to damage one of the world's oldest and most famous documents, the Magna Carta. The women are both in their 80s. They went to the British Library in London and attacked the glass case that contained the Magna Carta. The women used a hammer and a chisel to try to break the glass. Police have charged the women with criminal damage. The British Library said its security staff intervened to prevent further damage to the case. It added that the Magna Carta itself remains undamaged. The women are from the Just Stop Oil protest group. They held up a sign that read, "The government is breaking the law." The women also glued themselves to the case. The Magna Carta is a royal charter that was agreed to by King John of England on the 15th of June, 1215. It stated that everyone was equal under the law. It also guaranteed that everyone should have a fair trial, with a jury. Historians say the Magna Carta was the foundation for the development of Western democracy. In particular, it influenced the U.S. Constitution. The two protesters said, "The Magna Carta is of great importance to our history, to our freedoms and to our laws. But there will be no freedom, no lawfulness, no rights, if we allow climate breakdown to become the catastrophe that is now threatened." They added, "Our government is breaking its own laws against climate change."
Internet access good for our health. Internet access is good for our health. A report suggests that being connected to the web is positive for us. Researchers looked at 2 million people's internet use and health from 168 countries. The data was from the years 2006 to 2021. The researchers looked at 8 factors that affect people's well-being. These included life satisfaction and social life. The researchers said people with internet access were 8% happier. One surprising conclusion was that using the internet was as good as walking in nature. Researchers said the internet helps people to learn new things and make friends. However, the research did not look at social media. A researcher said, "The study cannot contribute to the recent debate on whether or not social media use is harmful." He added that different channels and uses of the internet have very different effects on well-being.
Internet access good for our health. A new study says internet access is good for our health. A report from the Oxford Internet Institute in the UK suggested that being connected to the World Wide Web has a positive effect on our well-being. Researchers looked at data on people's internet use and mental health from 168 countries. The data was gathered between the years 2006 and 2021. It included information on 2 million people aged 15 to 99. The research team looked at 8 factors that affect people's well-being. These included life satisfaction, positive experiences, and happiness with social life. The team found that people with internet access were 8% happier than those without web access. The research included some surprising conclusions. One was the suggestion that internet access had a similar, positive effect to walking in nature. It helps people to learn new things, practice hobbies, watch movies, and make new friends. However, the research did not look at how social media impacted people's lives. Many recent studies show that social media is having a negative effect on people's mental health. Researcher Tobias Dienland said, "The study cannot contribute to the recent debate on whether or not social media use is harmful or whether or not smartphones should be banned at schools." He added that different channels and uses of the internet have vastly different effects on well-being.
France issues scratch and sniff baguette stamp. The French post office, La Poste, issued a special stamp to honour the baguette, France's national bread. The stamp is covered with tiny capsules that release the smell of fresh bread. It shows a baguette decorated with a red, white and blue ribbon. A shopkeeper who sells the scratch and sniff stamp said it had a bakery smell. The stamp had a print run of 594,000 copies. La Poste said French bakers bake 6 billion baguettes every year. The baguette is close to the hearts of French people. France's president called it 250 grams of magic and perfection. La Poste called the baguette the symbol of our gastronomy, the jewel of our culture. It said the bread was popular because it promises a delicious taste experience, and it seduces with its golden crust. It added that the baguette's toasted scent whets the appetite. The baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022.
France issues scratch and sniff baguette stamp. The French post office, La Poste, has issued a commemorative postage stamp to honor France's famous bread, the baguette. The new stamp is not a run-of-the-mill issue. Its surface is coated with tiny capsules that, once broken, release the fragrance of freshly baked bread. The €1.96 stamp depicts a baguette decorated with a red, white, and blue ribbon. A shopkeeper in the heart of Paris that sells the scratch and sniff stamp said it had a bakery smell. The stamp was launched on Thursday to celebrate the day of the patron saint of bakers and pastry chefs. La Poste said it had an initial print run of 594,000 copies. It also said French bakers bake more than 6 billion baguettes every year. The baguette is very close to the hearts of French people. France's President Emmanuel Macron once described it as being 250 grams of magic and perfection. La Poste wrote about the French loaf on its website. It called the baguette the bread of our daily lives, the symbol of our gastronomy, the jewel of our culture. It explained why the baguette was so popular. It said, "It is the promise of a delectable sensory experience. On view, it seduces with its golden crust. Fresh from the oven, its toasted scent whets the appetite." The baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022. La Poste called the bread an ambassador of the bakery craft. It said the baguette transcends borders to become an international icon.
Cycling is good for your knees, says study. Cycling keeps us fit and healthy. It is good for our heart and our mental health. A surprising benefit of cycling is it is good for our knees. A new study says cyclists have less knee pain when they get older. Researchers looked at 2,600 people with an average age of 64. They asked the people about their physical activity. They also took X-rays of the people's knees. The researchers checked the X-rays for signs of arthritis in the knees. Researcher Dr. Grace Lowe was surprised by the research. She said cyclists were 21% less likely to have a joint problem in their knees called osteoarthritis. This happens when we use our joints a lot. The joints wear out and become painful. Osteoarthritis usually starts when people are in their 50s. Dr. Lowe said cycling was a great way of stopping arthritis. A lot of research shows that cyclists are 20% less likely to die too early.
Cycling is good for your knees, says study. Cycling is a great way to keep fit and healthy. It strengthens our heart, keeps our weight down, and is good for mental health. A little known and, perhaps surprising benefit of getting on a bike is that it is good for our knees. A new study says cyclists are less likely to experience knee pain later in life than people who do not ride bicycles. The study was conducted by a research team from Baylor College of Medicine in the USA. Researchers surveyed 2,600 men and women with an average age of 64. The survey participants were asked about their levels of physical activity. They also had X-rays of their knees taken. This was to look for signs and levels of arthritis in their knee joints. The lead researcher, Dr. Grace Lowe, said the results of the research were surprising. She said cyclists were 21% less likely to have signs of osteoarthritis compared to those who did not have a history of cycling. She added, "I was surprised to see how very strong the benefit of cycling was." A lot of research shows that cyclists are around 20% less likely to die prematurely. Dr. Lowe said cycling is a great preventative strategy for many things, including arthritis. Osteoarthritis is often called wear and tear arthritis. It's what happens when we use the cartilage in our joints a lot. The cartilage wears down and becomes painful. Arthritis most commonly affects the over 50s.
Ghanaian 1-year-old world's youngest artist. Guinness World Records has recognized a toddler from Ghana as the world's youngest artist. Ace Liam Nanasam Ankara was 1 year and 152 days old when he entered the record books. His mother, Chantel, said it was obvious her son had artistic talent when he was 6 months old. She explained how he began painting. She said she gave Ace Liam a canvas and some paint. He had an affinity for colour as he crawled over the canvas. Ace Liam is attracting attention across the art world. His work was shown at Ghana's Museum of Science. He sold 9 of the 10 pieces on show. Ghana's First Lady asked him for a painting. Chantel said her son is creating interest with his artistic flair. She said he has lit a conversation about art appreciation. She added, "His abstract paintings are inspired by the world around him." Guinness said Ace Liam has an exciting career ahead of him.
Ghanaian 1-year-old world's youngest artist. A toddler from Ghana has officially been recognized as the world's youngest artist. Guinness World Records acknowledged Ace Liam Nana Samankra when he was just 1 year and 152 days old. The little boy began painting at the age of 6 months when his precocious talent became evident. His mother Chantal, also an artist, said it was obvious her son had artistic talent from that young age. She explained how he started painting. Chantal had been commissioned to create a work for Miss Universe 2023. While she was working, she gave Liam a canvas and some paint. She said he clearly had an affinity for color as he crawled over the canvas. Chantal named his first piece The Crawl. Liam is attracting attention across the art world. His work was exhibited at Ghana's Museum of Science in January. 9 of the 10 pieces on show at that exhibition sold. Art lovers have purchased a further 6 of his paintings this year. Even Ghana's First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo commissioned work from the toddler. Chantal said her son is creating a stir with his artistic flair. She said, he has created a buzz and heightened the conversation about art appreciation. She said, his abstract paintings are inspired by the world around him, colors, shapes, textures, and his mood. Guinness said, there is no doubt that Liam has an exciting career ahead of him, and we can't wait to see what comes next.
UK leader wants national service for 18-year-olds. The UK leader wants to start national service for 18-year-olds. 18-year-olds will have 2 choices. One is to spend a year in the Army, Navy or Air Force. About 30,000 people will choose this. The other choice is to do voluntary work for 1 weekend a month. This means volunteering in the health, ambulance or fire services, or in local communities. The UK leader thinks young people will get useful skills. Many people attacked the plan. They say it is too expensive. There are not enough staff to train 30,000 Army volunteers. A former Navy head said the idea was crazy. He says national service will suck money out of defence. Many young people think the plan will take their freedom away. However, one teenager says it will give young people a purpose. She said national service works well in many countries.
UK leader wants national service for 18-year-olds. The UK leader has a plan to introduce national service for 18-year-olds. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says he will introduce compulsory national service if his party wins the UK's election on July the 4th. Under his plan, young people will have 2 choices when they become 18. The first choice is to spend 1 year in the Army, Navy, or Air Force. The government thinks about 30,000 people will choose to do this. The second option is to do voluntary work for 1 weekend a month. This means volunteering to work with Britain's National Health Service, ambulance service, fire service, or in local communities. Mr. Sunak said young people will gain valuable skills and help to build a stronger national culture. Rishi Sunak's plan has been attacked by many people. Various experts say it is too expensive and that the UK does not have enough staff to train 30,000 Army volunteers. Many defence experts say the idea is unworkable. Admiral Alan West, a former Navy head, said, "I'm delighted if more young people become aware of defence, but this idea is bonkers." He believes the government needs to spend more money on defence. He says national service will suck money out of defence. Many young people disagree with the plan. They believe it takes away their freedom. However, one 17-year-old said it will give many young people a purpose. She said national service works well in dozens of countries.
Panama evacuates islanders due to rising sea levels. Residents on Panama's Gardi Sugdub Island are leaving because of rising sea levels. They are relocating to the mainland. The government said some people are refusing to leave. They will stay until the last minute. Gardi Sugdub is a sign of things to come. more islands are under threat from being engulfed. A recent study said Panama would lose 2.01% of its coastal territory to rising sea levels. Thousands of people will need to relocate. Gardi Sugdub has been home to the indigenous Guna people for generations. The tiny island was home to 300 families. Islander Nadine Morales said, "We're a little sad, but the sea is sinking the island." She added, "Climate change has had a major impact. The tide comes to a level it didn't before." Ms. Morales hopes her community will prosper in its new location. This is 2 kilometers from the port from which boats go to Gardi Sugdub.
Panama evacuates islanders due to rising sea levels. Rising sea levels have caused Panama to evacuate the residents of one of its islands. The inhabitants of the tiny Gardi Sugdub island off Panama's Caribbean coast are being relocated to the mainland. However, a Panamanian government official said some people are refusing to vacate their ancestral home. They will stay until the absolute last minute. Panama's government said Gardi Sugdub is a sign of things to come as more low-lying islands are under threat from being engulfed by the ocean. A recent study by Panama's Environment Ministry estimated the country would lose 2.01% of its coastal territory to rising sea levels. It added that 38,000 people will need to be relocated at a cost of about $1.2 billion. Gardi Sugdub has been home to the indigenous Guna people for generations. The overcrowded island is just 366 meters long and 137 meters wide, but was home to nearly 300 families. They relied on fishing and tourism to make a living. Islander Nadine Morales, 24, said, "We're a little sad, but the sea is sinking the island little by little." She added, "Lately, I've seen that climate change has had a major impact. The tide comes to a level it didn't before, and the heat is unbearable." Ms. Morales said she hopes her community will prosper in its new location. Her new home will be in a $12 million government development 2 kilometers from the port from which boats go to Gardi Sugdub.
Australia to allow foreign citizens into its army. Americans will soon be able to join the Australian Defence Force, ADF. Australia needs more people to join its army. The government hopes that getting people from other countries will solve this problem. The ADF needs around 4,400 workers. Only Americans, who are also permanent residents in Australia, can apply. Australia's Defence Minister Richard Marles said it was possible that in the future people from more countries could join. Mr. Marles said Australia is growing the ADF because it is essential to meet the nation's security challenges through the next decade and beyond. The Defence Ministry said recruiting from a wider pool of people will help ensure the ADF reflects the full diversity of Australia. The opposition party disagreed with the policy. It said it showed the government has failed. It said, "We should be seeing more Australians with the confidence to sign up."
Australia to allow foreign citizens into its army. Australia will soon allow non-Australians into its army. People from countries such as the UK, Canada, and New Zealand can apply to join the Australian Defence Force, ADF. Australia is having problems getting people to sign up for its army. The government hopes that opening the army up to people from other countries will solve its recruitment problem. The ADF currently has a shortage of around 4,400 workers. From July, New Zealanders who are permanent residents in Australia can apply to join. Next year, those from the UK, US, and Canada will have their chance. Australia's Defence Minister, Richard Marles, said it was possible that in the future, people from more countries could join. Mr. Marles said his country was changing its recruitment policy for security reasons. He said, "The Australian government has chosen to grow the Australian Defence Force because it is essential to meet the nation's security challenges through the next decade and beyond." A Defence Ministry spokesperson said, "We're being bold in order to grow the ADF. Recruiting from a wider pool of people will help ensure the ADF reflects the full diversity of Australia and is able to draw on the talents of all of Australian society." Opposition Foreign Minister Simon Birmingham disagreed with the policy. He said it showed government failure. He said, "We should be seeing more Australians with the confidence to sign up."
Somalia wins UN Security Council seat. Somalia has been elected as a member of the UN Security Council. It is the first time for Somalia to hold that position since the 1970s. 3 decades of brutal civil wars and bloody factional fighting brought the country to its knees. A coalition government in 2009 then brought the return of stability. Somalia's recent turmoil and its struggles to defeat terrorism mean it can be very helpful in promoting peace around the world. The UN Security Council was formed in 1945 to help keep world peace. It has 5 permanent members: China, France, Russia, the UK and the US, and 10 revolving non-permanent members. To win a seat, a nation must get the support of 2/3 of UN representatives. Somalia was elected unopposed. It will serve for 2 years. Somalia said, "Our tenure will be guided by our respect of the principles of international law."
Somalia wins UN Security Council seat. Somalia has been elected as one of the 10 non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. A vote at the UN headquarters in New York on the 6th of June saw the African nation ushered in to take its seat in the UN body. It is the first time for Somalia to hold such a position since the 1970s. It descended into brutal and bloody conflict throughout the ensuing 3 decades. Civil and factional wars brought the war-torn country to its knees. A coalition government in 2009 has since brought the return of stability. Political experts believe that Somalia's recent turmoil and its struggles to defeat Islamist insurgents give it a valuable voice in promoting peace and security in the world. The UN Security Council was formed in 1945 as a mechanism to maintain global peace. Its 15 members include 5 permanent members: China, France, Russia, the UK and the US, and 10 revolving non-permanent members. To win a seat, a nation must secure the support of at least 2/3 of the UN General Assembly delegations. Somalia was elected unopposed and will serve for 2 years from January. It will sit alongside newly elected Denmark, Greece, Pakistan, and Panama. Somali Foreign Minister Ahmed Moalem Fiki said, "Our tenure will be guided by our full commitment to multilateralism and our respect of the principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter."
Electric spoon helps people cut down on salt. A new spoon will make food taste saltier. It is called the electric salt spoon. It was created by a university and a drinks company in Japan. The spoon will help people use less salt. It sends a weak electric current to the tongue. This makes salt taste 1.5 times stronger. We can have less salt, but still taste it. A researcher said, people need to reduce the amount of salt in their food. However, she said food with no salt is tasteless. Too much salt causes heart problems, high blood pressure, and strokes. The WHO says we should have less than 5 grams a day. In Japan, the average person has around 10.1 grams of salt a day. A lot of salt in our food comes from processed foods and from soy sauce. The electric salt spoon costs 19,800 yen, around $99. Its maker hopes to sell 1 million of them over the next 5 years. The spoon's developer has also created electric chopsticks.
Electric spoon helps people cut down on salt. A battery-powered spoon that makes food taste saltier is now in stores in Japan. It is called the electric salt spoon. It was created by researchers from Tokyo's Meiji University and the Japanese drinks company Kirin. They hope their spoon will help people to cut down on the amount of salt they eat. The spoon sends a weak electric current to the tongue. The current is too weak to be felt. However, it makes salt taste up to 1.5 times stronger. This means we can eat food with less salt, but still sense a salty taste. Researcher Ai Sato said, Japan has a food culture that tends to favor salty tastes. People need to reduce the amount of salt in their food. However, she added that food with no salt is bland and tasteless. Salt is important for our health. However, too much of it can cause cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressure, strokes, and heart problems. These are the leading causes of death globally. The World Health Organization recommends a daily salt intake of less than 5 grams. In Japan, the average person has around 10.1 grams of salt a day. That's higher than the average of 8.5 grams for Americans. In many countries, around 75% of salt in the diet comes from processed foods and from things like soy sauce. The electric salt spoon costs 19,800 yen, around $99. Kirin hopes to sell 1 million of them over the next 5 years. The spoon's developer has also created electric chopsticks. These will go on sale next year.
Elon Musk wins record $56 billion pay deal. Elon Musk has been given a record-breaking pay deal of $56 billion. The huge remuneration package is 3 times the average for CEOs in the US. The average income in the US is $59,384. At that salary, it would take 943,014 years to earn $56 billion. Mr. Musk's salary was agreed upon at a Tesla meeting on Friday. Musk responded by telling investors, "We have the most awesome shareholder base." Musk's pay deal was blocked by a court earlier this year. The judge said the size was unfair. However, over 70% of shareholders said it was in Tesla's best interests. The BBC quoted a car industry analyst. He said the vote was a pretty ringing endorsement. He praised Musk's business skills. He said there's been a 1,100% appreciation in Tesla stock, and that's pretty impressive. Shares in Tesla closed 3% up on Friday.
Elon Musk wins record $56 billion pay deal. Tesla boss Elon Musk has been awarded a record-breaking pay deal of $56 billion by the shareholders of his company. The astronomical remuneration package is 3,000 times the average pay for a CEO in the USA. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average income in the USA in 2023 was $59,384. At that salary, it would take 943,014 years to earn $56 billion. Mr. Musk's salary was agreed upon by shareholders at Tesla's annual general meeting on Friday. Musk responded by telling the investors attending the meeting that, "We have the most awesome shareholder base of any public company. We are not just opening a new chapter for Tesla, we are starting a new book." Musk's pay settlement was blocked earlier this year by a court in Delaware. The presiding judge deemed the size of the pay to be unfair to shareholders. However, in Friday's meeting, shareholders agreed the deal was both fair and in the company's best interests. The BBC said 72% of the votes cast favored the $56 billion deal. The BBC quoted car industry analyst Carl Brower as saying the vote was a pretty ringing endorsement. Shares in Tesla closed nearly 3% up following the meeting. Mr. Brower extolled Musk's business acumen. He said, "My understanding is that there's been about a 1,100% appreciation in Tesla stock, and that's pretty impressive. Most chief executives have never done anything like that."
Top US doctor wants health warnings on social media. Social media has changed the world. The USA's top doctor said one bad thing is it can cause mental health problems. Dr. Vivek Murthy wants mental health warnings to be put on social media sites. He is worried that youngsters see too much sexual and violent content online. He said it was time to put warning labels on social media sites. The label would say, "Social media is linked to mental health harms in young people." In 2023, Murthy warned that social media could harm the mental health of children. In his recent warning, he wrote, "The mental health crisis among young people is an emergency. Social media is an important contributor." He also said young people spend too much time online. He said teenagers who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of anxiety and depression.
Top U.S. doctor wants social media health warnings. Social media has changed the world. There are good and bad things about it. One bad thing is that it can cause mental health problems. This is something the USA's top doctor wants to address. U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy wants social media companies to display mental health warnings on their platforms. He is particularly worried about the harm the platforms do to young people. He said algorithms lead youngsters to extreme sexual and violent content. Dr. Murthy said, "It is time to require a Surgeon General's warning label on social media platforms, stating that social media is associated with significant mental health harms for adolescents." He said laws were also needed to keep young people safe online. Dr. Murthy has campaigned for tighter controls of social media for many years. In 2023, he warned that social media presented a profound risk of harm to the mental health and well-being of children and adolescents. His recent warning is in a guest essay published by the New York Times. He wrote, "The mental health crisis among young people is an emergency. Social media has emerged as an important contributor." He has concerns about how long young people spend online. He said youngsters who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of anxiety and depression symptoms. Murthy thinks online warnings will help, just as warnings on cigarettes have helped.
Chimpanzees use medicinal plants when sick. Humans have used plants as medicine since prehistory. Scientists have now found that chimpanzees use plants to heal themselves. Researchers conducted a study of chimpanzee behavior in a forest in Uganda. The researchers observed a male chimp with an injured hand looking for a fern. The fern may have reduced the swelling in its hand. Another chimp with an infection ate the bark of a tree. This may have helped to cure the animal. The researchers say there is a correlation between the chimpanzee's ills and the healing properties in plants. The researchers tested the plants the chimpanzees ate. They found that 88% of them had antibacterial properties. A researcher said, "Results suggest that Budongo chimpanzees consume several plants with potent medicinal properties." She said, "The research may lead to a greater use of medicinal plants in our lives."
Chimpanzees use medicinal plants when sick. Humans have been using medicinal plants since prehistoric times. They are still used around the world in traditional medicine. For the first time, scientists have discovered that chimpanzees also seek out the fruits of the forest to heal themselves when sick. Researchers from Oxford University in the UK conducted a study of chimpanzee behavior at the Budongo Central Forest Reserve in Uganda. The researchers tracked a male chimp with an injured hand looking for the leaves of a fern. The fern had properties that may have reduced the swelling in the ape's hand. Another chimpanzee with a parasitic infection sought out the bark of a catthorn tree. This may have helped to alleviate the animal's condition. The research team said there was a strong correlation between the chimpanzees' ailments and injuries and the healing properties in the flora they consumed. The researchers tested plant extracts that were not a normal part of a chimpanzee's diet. They found that 88% of the extracts contained antibacterial properties, while 33% of them had anti-inflammatory qualities. Researcher and anthropologist Dr. Elodie Fryman said, "Pharmacological results suggest that Budongo chimpanzees consume several species with potent medicinal properties." She said her team's investigations into the primates' behavior may pave the way for a greater use of natural remedies in our lives.
Major record labels sue AI companies over copyright. AI is changing the music business. 3 big record labels are suing 2 AI startup companies. The labels say the startups are infringing their copyrighted music on an almost unimaginable scale. The labels say the startups are creating music that could fill the market with machine-generated content. Record labels say this music will cheapen and ultimately drown out the genuine sound recordings. AI companies say their music is protected under a special law called fair use. This lets people reuse copyrighted material legally. Fair use means people can use material for things like news and comedy. A startup CEO said his technology generates completely new output, not pre-existing content. However, the record labels say the startups have created songs that sound exactly like ABBA songs. The labels want the startups to pay $150,000 per song.
Major record labels sue AI companies over copyright. Artificial intelligence. AI is changing many things in our lives. Not all of the things are good. Some of the world's biggest record labels are suing 2 AI companies over possible copyright infringements. The labels include Sony Music, Universal Music Group, and Warner Records. They say 2 AI startup companies called Suno and Udio are infringing their copyrighted music on an almost unimaginable scale. The labels say the AI startups have created models to produce music that could saturate the market with machine-generated content. Lawyers for the record labels say AI-generated music will directly compete with, cheapen, and ultimately drown out the genuine sound recordings. This could be a disaster for artists. Many AI companies say their software creates content that is protected under copyright law by the Fair Use Doctrine. This is a special rule that allows people to reuse copyrighted material legally. Fair use means people can reuse music and written articles for things like news reporting and comedy. Suno CEO Mikey Schulman defended his company. He said, "Our technology is transformative. It is designed to generate completely new output, not to memorize and regurgitate pre-existing content." However, the record labels say the startups have created songs that sound exactly like Dancing Queen by ABBA and My Girl by The Temptations. The labels want compensation of $150,000 per song from the AI startups.
Vienna tops the 2024 Global Livability Index. The Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU, named Vienna as the world's most livable city for the third year in a row. The EIU's Global Livability Index ranks 173 cities worldwide on factors like culture, environment, healthcare, infrastructure and stability. Vienna got perfect scores in 4 out of 5 categories. It did not get maximum points for culture, owing to few big sporting events. Vienna's residents are lucky to have great architecture. The average global livability score rose fractionally over the past year. However, risks to stability remain. Global tensions could see the numbers in the index fall. The EIU said there have been more instances of civil unrest around the world that are unlikely to ease in the near future. The stability category saw the biggest fall this year. This is because of geopolitical conflict, ongoing housing crises, and rising crime. Vienna tops the 2024 Global Livability Index. Vienna has been named as the world's most livable city. It is the third year running the Austrian capital has won this accolade. The Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU, released its annual Global Livability Index earlier this week. The index ranked 173 cities worldwide on a number of factors that affect quality of life. These include culture and environment, education, healthcare, infrastructure and stability. Vienna was awarded perfect scores in all but one of the 5 categories. It failed to scoop maximum points for culture, owing to a lack of major sporting events. Vienna's 2 million residents are blessed with stunning architecture and a rich musical legacy. The EIU said the average score for livability in cities around the globe rose fractionally over the past year. It cautioned that risks to stability remain. It said, tensions around the world could see a deterioration in the index in coming years. Since we conducted the study, there have been more instances of civil unrest and demonstrations around the world, suggesting continuing stress on livability that is unlikely to ease in the near future. The CNBC website said, the stability category recorded the biggest decline out of all 5 categories this year, held back by geopolitical conflict, civil unrest, as well as the ongoing housing crisis and crime seen across many cities.